Hello and welcome to another episode of What Travis Says. My name is Travis and let's talk about Doctor Who. More specifically, John Nathan Turner. Now many of you might not know who John Nathan Turner is, especially if you're only familiar with the revival of Doctor Who from 2005 on. Because John Nathan Turner was the producer of the final seasons of the classic series of Doctor Who. He was a longtime producer from 1980 to 1989, until the show's cancellation. He was technically a producer and not a showrunner because he didn't have any writing experience. But it is widely considered that many of his decisions for Doctor Who were pretty awful, and that this persistent perceived drop in quality is what brought about Doctor Who's cancellation in 1989. But of course, like anything, it is much more complicated than that. So, what's the deal with John Nathan Turner anyway? John worked as the assistant floor manager on 2 serials in the John Pertwee era in 1970. He later worked on Who under the Tom Baker era as a production unit manager until 1979. He then became the show's producer for season 18, the final season, to showcase Tom Baker as the Doctor. And John was there to help cast the next 3 Doctors, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Sylvester McCoy. And looking at that information by itself, you could wonder, why would anyone hate John Nathan Turner? Because he gave us 5, 6, and 7. There are plenty of fans of Doctors 5, 6, and 7. But there was a lot of motivation for John Nathan Turner to change certain aspects of the show. Mainly because of his time working in the Tom Baker era. You see, when John Nathan Turner worked in the Baker era, he worked under producer Graham Williams. Williams became producer in 1977, right around the time that the BBC was being criticized that Doctor Who was becoming too violent. Williams was instructed to rein in some of the violence and make it a little more friendly, a little more campy. But while Nathan Turner was the production unit manager, he felt that Williams and even Tom Baker just did not take the show seriously enough. He felt that they were making a mockery of science fiction, a parody of what it should actually be. That the show was too silly and it should be presenting more serious storylines. So when John Nathan Turner became the producer, his first major act was to try to rein in Tom Baker's creative influence. And a lot of you are not liking where this is going. How dare he tell the Tom Baker to rein in his creative influence, the wonderfully crazy and amazing Tom Baker. But that's not all. Nathan Turner replaced the original theme music with a more contemporary electronic arrangement. He had a new opening title card and a closing sequence redesigned, which by itself doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But John Nathan Turner got rid of longtime composer Dudley Simpson. Simpson, who had worked on the show from way back during the Hartnell era, was effectively fired. Because when John Nathan Turner became producer, he decided that the music needed to be updated, fully updated. So he took Simpson out to lunch and told him while he appreciated all the work that he had done on Doctor Who, his services were no longer needed. Now, side note to that point, Simpson was actually contracted to write the music for Shadow, and as we've talked about before, Shadow was never 100% completed, though in the 2017 restoration of Shadow, there is a dedication to Dudley Simpson in the credits. But John Nathan Turner was not done. Oh no, he needed to redesign Tom Baker as well. He had the costume designer redesign a new outfit for Tom Baker and giving permission to get rid of the trademark scarf. Though the costume designer didn't completely disregard the scarf, but just redesigned it in a more purple and burgundy way. Though, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, John Nathan Turner didn't have any writing experience, so that means the writing didn't suffer at all. Did it? Well, John Nathan Turner wanted to get rid of all previous Doctor Who writers. If you had written an episode for Doctor Who, you're out. You're not writing anymore for this show. But you could say, but Travis, Chibnall is doing the same thing. He got rid of all the writers and brought in all new writers. He's doing the same thing as John Nathan Turner. But is he though? Back when Nathan Turner became producer on Doctor Who, these writers that he had been around for years, for decades. Dudley Simpson had been around for years. Nowadays, a writer on Doctor Who is sort of a come and go sort of thing. A person will come on and write one episode, and then another person will write another episode, and the writer's room is generally only maybe guaranteed for possibly 1 season. There's an expected turnaround nowadays. But Nathan Turner gutted the writer's room to make room for people who could write more serious storylines with less jokes and less campiness. And after they brought the Master back, a move which made sense because the Master is a Time Lord and he can regenerate, there was a lot of positive feedback from that. The response of bringing the Master back was actually very well received. So John then realized the benefit to bringing back previous monsters and characters that the Doctor had met with or battled. The Brigadier came back, Omega, the Mara, the Daleks even showed that they weren't all completely exterminated. And after 7 years of silence, the Cybermen returned. They were big in the 60s, they had one story in the 70s, but in the 80s, they really came into their own. They definitely solidified themselves as a member of the Doctor's Rogues Gallery. And having them come back to battle the 5 Doctors kind of made it so every Doctor sort of had to battle the Cybermen as a rite of passage. And the Nathan Turner era had Davros return in a very villainous way. Davros originally appeared in Genesis of the Daleks, arguably one of the best Doctor Who stories ever created. And then came Destiny of the Daleks, which was not so great. And that's where Davros sat for a while until the John Nathan Turner era. Davros returned as a threateningly complex villain for the Doctor to battle, not some campy, one-lined, thin-veiled villain. Peter Davison's run was fine, though you could say that you could kind of tell that the writers didn't know how to write for 3 companions and balance it out evenly enough. Colin Baker's run was alright, but you could kind of tell that production didn't know which tone they wanted to convey for the show. And Sylvester McCoy's run, well, that was just ambitious. You could tell that they were just trying new things, and they essentially reinvented a lot of the show. One of the biggest issues that people have with John Nathan Turner is that they believe that he overstayed his welcome. He was on this plane that was about to go down, and he crashed it, and he just kept going. But there are reports that John Nathan Turner wanted to leave as early as 1986. After the Colin Baker adventure, The Trial of a Time Lord, John Nathan Turner wanted to go out and do other projects, but he was kind of forced to stay. You see, the BBC couldn't find a replacement for John Nathan Turner, so they told him, hey, if you leave, this show is going to die. So he stuck around for a couple more years. The BBC higher-ups were not enjoying the ratings for Doctor Who, and any producer that was going to come and take the job knew that they were signing up for a show that was on its way out. This show was going to die. It was a career death sentence. If it weren't for John staying on as a producer, we never would have gotten any of the wonderfully crazy Sylvester McCoy storyline. That wonderfully crazy, off-the-wall McCoy era. You see, McCoy's era did something that not many Doctors had ever touched on before him, and that was to show us that we really didn't know much about the Doctor's past. This was an idea that the 10th Doctor touched on, but then 11 really expanded upon it. John Nathan Turner passed away in 2002, just 3 years before the revival series came back on the air. And it's sad to think that he might have blamed himself for the cancellation of such a wonderful sci-fi show. Sure, he made some negatively impactful decisions, but then he had to fight against the BBC, who was effectively trying to smear the show into cancellation. And it worked. So like I said, it's a complicated situation. But in the comments down below, let me know your thoughts on John Nathan Turner. Let me know anything that I might have forgotten to add, because it is a very colorful and detailed tapestry of history, and I'm sure that I missed vast chunks of information in this 8-minute video. But as always, my name is Travis. Thank you for listening to what I have to say, and you will see me tomorrow.